One Nation leader Pauline Hanson left people gasping in shock as she entered the Senate wearing a burqa. An emotional Attorney General George Brandis delivered the most stinging of slapdowns. It earned him a standing ovation from his political opponents.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And no wonder they say truth is stranger than fiction. If you thought our politics could not get any crazier, Pauline Hanson last week clearly proved you wrong, leaving fellow senators wide-eyed, open-mouthed and appalled, and giving the tabloids a gift that will surely keep on giving.
She's gone Burko.
Pauline goes Burko.
Senator Hanson.
If publicity was what she wanted, the One Nation's senator from Queensland got it in spades, both here and in headlines around the world. But almost none of it was favourable.
Bigotry stripped bare.
Burqa-clad One Nation leader provokes wide condemnation.
Hanson goes burqa, now faces backlash.
After her burqa stunt, it'll surely be even harder for fellow senators to take Hanson seriously. And maybe also more difficult for the coalition to justify buying her vote on media reform at the expense of bashing the ABC, as it succeeded in doing last week. The Sky News reported on Tuesday.
The government's media reforms are a step closer, with One Nation giving conditional support to the package. Pauline Hanson says her party has secured a number of amendments, including changes at the ABC, which will force it to be more transparent about staff wages and be more fair and balanced in its reporting.
More fair and balanced, and with Pauline Burqa Hanson as judge or just prosecuting counsel. So, what made One Nation change its mind on media reform, and in particular support the scrapping of the 2 out of 3 rule, which is holding back several media mergers and preventing Lachlan Murdoch buying Channel 10? Well, News Corp's Andrew Bolt, who's been fighting a tireless campaign against the ABC, was clearly one factor.
I remember the last time I had an interview on this program, and you said, Pauline, you're wrong, remember? And I said, OK, Andrew, I will go away and I will have a look at this, and that's what we've done.
Hanson's second look made her see what most already knew, that commercial media is struggling. But it seems her view on the power and politics of the ABC was the key to her changing her mind.
If I didn't agree to this also, all I could see is the ABC getting more of a stranglehold, pushing their agenda, their left-leaning views, and I thought, no, this is an opportunity, and you've raised some of the things that I've asked for.
To which the government, it seems, happily said yes. Reports out of Canberra last week suggested One Nation had won a competitive neutrality inquiry into the ABC's effect on commercial media, plus an agreement to publish names and salaries of ABC staff earning more than $200,000 a year, and a change to the ABC Act to include a requirement that it be fair and balanced. So what might that actually mean, given that the ABC is already required by the Act to be accurate and impartial? And given that, as ABC Chairman Justin Milne claimed this week,
over 85% of Australians trust the ABC above all other media businesses and believe strongly in its value as a source of truth and information that others simply don't provide.
Over on Sky News, David Spears tried valiantly to find out from One Nation Senator Malcolm Roberts what fair and balanced might involve.
So every Australia Day, should the ABC devote half its broadcast time on all its various platforms to those who say it's a bad idea to have it on that day?
Well, the ABC, that's a statutory holiday, and so the ABC should just accept that it is a statutory holiday until it changes.
I mean, the debate about whether it should be that day or another day, should they go 50-50 with those advocates and proponents?
They should give everyone a fair crack at it.
So 50-50 on every issue?
No, I didn't say 50-50. Whatever's fair, you know, it might be 40-60, it might be 30.
What's fair?
Well, exactly. Unless you measure it, then it is subjective.
Okay,
I agree with that.
But who's going to decide what's fair? How many climate scientists should be on this side or that side, and who measures all of that? Are you talking about a new, fair bureaucracy that sits over the top of the ABC?
A fairness bureaucracy sounds like a great idea. Also on Sky, One Nation Senator Brian Burston was asked what he meant by fair and balanced, and he had a much clearer answer.
If you're doing a story on vaccinations and there's a group out that is anti-vaccinations, you need to tell those two sides of that story?
Absolutely.
The same would doubtless be demanded on climate science, where deniers of man-made global warming would, in One Nation's view, also need to be given equal weight. Perhaps also on whether the world is flat. It is a ridiculous notion, and it's remarkable that the government should encourage one nation to believe it could happen. But it's a sign of how desperate they are after years of trying to modernise Australia's media laws. And that desperation will continue, because Burqa Day was also the day the media reform package was supposed to pass the Senate, but after talks with Nick Xenophon broke down, it did not, prompting an angry response in The Australian.
Media executives are furious at the shock delay to the reform bills and see it as another sign of the dysfunction in Parliament.
And why were those unnamed media executives furious? Well, Friday was deadline day for bids to buy Channel 10 from the receiver. And the government's failure to scrap the 2 out of 3 rule means Lachlan Murdoch and Bruce Gordon are still not able to get a clear run at the network. So, Parliament will be back in 2 weeks' time, High Court permitting, to try yet again. And we'll see if One Nation succeeds in getting its curbs on the ABC into the package. And in the long term, whether Pauline and Andrew Bolt get support for an attack on ABC funding.
Andrew, I'd whack off quite a bit of money off it, hundreds of millions if I possibly could. But you know what? I'm going to wait till next year for the budget and I'll talk to the Treasurer about that.
That, for the moment, looks less likely to attract government support. But now, to science reporting and the difference a day makes. Here is day one.
It's being hailed as one of Australia's greatest scientific discoveries, a world-first breakthrough in Sydney.
7 News on 10th of August was not the only TV network to give the Victor Chang Institute a glorygram for its groundbreaking discovery. Sky News and ABC News covered its live media conference for an hour in total that morning, and the evening bulletins went head over heels for the news that night. So, what exactly was the breakthrough?
The world-renowned Victor Chang Institute has found what causes many miscarriages and birth defects.
Sounds amazing. And years down the track, we may find out it's true. But on day one, the headline writers certainly had no doubts.
Sydney's Victor Chang Cardiac Research Institute pioneers breakthrough that could prevent thousands of miscarriages.
And The Australian even found space for comments from readers.
Awesome findings by our awesome research teams.
A great candidate for Australian of the Year.
Radio News also cranked up the enthusiasm.
It's being hailed as one of Australia's greatest discoveries and could change the way pregnant women are cared for around the world.
But what a difference a day makes. Come day two, the media were blowing in the opposite direction, as independent experts question the significance of the findings.
Vitamin B3 claims slammed by obstetricians.
Sky News, whose TV arm had pumped the story so hard the day before, was now spinning a different line. And so were several others who had celebrated the breakthrough, like Yahoo 7, SBS Online and The Australian, who all now ran this smackdown from AAP.
The Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists says the extraordinary suggestions by researchers at the Victor Chang Institute were based on a small mouse study and have the potential to do more harm than good.
Fairfax Media was also soon dampening expectations.
Professor David Amor, a clinical geneticist at University of Melbourne, said
the families in the research had a specific genetic deficiency of vitamin B3, so for them it's possible. I stress there is no evidence that the same would apply to the general population.
And writing in The Conversation, Professor Claire Roberts was equally disparaging about the claims.
Whether niacin is useful in human miscarriage has not been studied. The birth defects studied in the paper are rare, and whether the findings apply to others is yet to be determined.
And Roberts also argued it wasn't just the media who had overreached.
Media reports and the research institution itself have made claims not supported by the science.
And indeed it was the Institute's media alert that has set the tone of the coverage by calling it an historic discovery and a blockbuster, world-first breakthrough. Faced with the criticism, the Victor Chang Institute opted for a partial retreat and issued a new media statement to say,
the Victor Chang Institute would never suggest that this discovery will explain all causes of miscarriage and birth defects. It is not known how many cases of miscarriage and birth defects are caused by low levels of NAD. It is also not yet known what dose of vitamin B3 will prevent miscarriage and birth defects.
But by this time, the historic claims were out there. So, how did it get to this? And why did we not see a bit more common sense and balance from the start? Well, the short answer is the media did little or no critical analysis before trumpeting the news. And almost no one bothered to consult an independent expert to ask if these claims of a once-in-a-lifetime discovery might be overblown. As Robin Bisson from the Science Media Centre observed in the aftermath of it all,
the temptation for journalists to trumpet a so-called breakthrough is hard to resist. But strong claims need to be backed up by strong evidence. By not fact-checking dramatic statements, journalists are forgetting that scientists are humans too, and can be swept up in their own work.
We hope the Victor Chang Institute's research proves to be as good as they hope. But there are plenty of reasons why it may not, and a long way to go before we'll know. And there's also a long way to go before the media reports health and science stories properly. And finally, to same-sex marriage. Yes, again, but with a new twist this time, because some are using it to sell their wares.
That'll get their attention. Dozens of lingerie-clad women take to Sydney streets to campaign for gay marriage.
Wow, exciting news! And the Daily Mail, which can't get enough boobs and scantily clad women, gave it the treatment, running the story with no less than 8 photos and this revealing video. And while no one else in Australia fell for the PR stunt, the Murdoch's UK Sun, which is famous for its paid 3 girls, also couldn't resist.
Now that's a flash mob. Dozens of women in racy lingerie stormed the streets of Sydney to campaign for same-sex marriage before landmark vote.
But let's take a look at those posters, because they're not all about the upcoming postal plebiscite. Those initials stand for Honey Birdette, a high street lingerie chain who organised the so-called campaign, which just happens to reveal their products. And how do we know? Well, they told us in the press release.
Honey Birdette's equality flash mob take to the streets of Sydney.
And the Daily Mail dutifully reproduced bits of it, word for word, proclaiming their goal
to empower women and celebrate women's equality.
And their strategy
to supporting the fight for equality across the board,
and hoping
to engage and mobilise thousands of women and their allies in the political process.
Snap! And what about the video? Yes, that too was shot and supplied by the company. Strangely, no mention of the demonstration being a shameless marketing campaign for undies, or indeed recent protests by employees against the company.
Former Honey Birdette workers call out alleged exploitation and harassment.
Spank me if I'm wrong is recommended sales banter in the customer service manifesto. And daily selfies must be sent to managers so they can determine whether their retail workers are exposing 3 items of branded lingerie.
Empowering women. But the corset company isn't the only one cashing in with same-sex marriage campaigns. The issue's also being used to flog ice cream.
Ben & Jerry's has banned customers from ordering 2 scoops of the same flavour until Australia legalises gay marriage.
Clever. Yes, the ice cream giant owned by Unilever isn't letting customers marry 2 scoops of the same flavour. While Streets, also owned by Unilever, showed what bliss is in store once gay couples are allowed to tie the knot and can share a Magnum. A campaign which met mixed reactions.
Centre for Independent Studies Senior Research Fellow Jeremy Samet said,
"It's a pretty obvious attempt to hijack an issue for commercial reasons."
Honey Birdette's customers were also not so sure about the company using same-sex marriage to sell suspenders and stockings.
This is worse than the Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad. The marriage equality message is just a promo video with no real discussion or message. This whole thing is a money grab.
But, as always, some in the media, like the Sun and Daily Mail, what a surprise, were only too happy to help. And finally, we'll leave you with, well, not a presenter's worst nightmare, but that moment when Beverly O'Connor on ABC's The World suddenly realised in the middle of a packaged interview that she was going out live.
And for the government of O'Neill, it was difficult for him to, go out and stand out to be a corruption fighter when he was himself faced with all his corruption allegations. So with the renewed mandate that he got from Parliament...
Not her fault at all. And you can read more about tonight's stories on our Facebook page or our website, where you can see a statement from the Victor Chang Institute. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or MediaWatch on Twitter. And make sure you catch Media Bites every Thursday. But for now, until next week, that's all from us. Goodbye.